Hampshire, as I predicted, there are no surprises. Donald Trump wins New Hampshire. Actually, wins New Hampshire pretty significantly. So Donald Trump has taken this commanding lead in New Hampshire, and he's going to hold on to it. There are some surprises in the exits. Nikki Haley will get closer to him than some suspected, but it's not going to be close enough to matter. He's going to get the delegates out of New Hampshire, and this race is over. Here's your trivia for tonight. There has never been a candidate to win both Iowa and New Hampshire who did not become the party nominee. Nikki Haley is going to go campaign in the Virgin Islands. They have a caucus and then come back for the South Carolina primary. But Haley doesn't have the numbers. She benefited from a massive crossover vote in New Hampshire tonight. And look, she's a personal friend. I like her. I would prefer her to Trump, frankly. I think she's actually more conservative on most of the issues, even as she's billed as some sort of squish. The problem for Nikki Haley, however, is that the Republican Party wants Trump versus Biden 2.0. They want Donald Trump. And culturally on those issues, she's more social libertarian than most Republicans, including myself, on issues, kind of live and let live, and doesn't want to fight on those issues, which is why she's perceived as kind of the squishy liberal in this race, even though she's got a very conservative record. She's not culturally aligned with where the Republican Party is right now. And even with those big crossover votes coming in from the Democrats to help her, that's actually going to amplify support for Donald Trump among the hardcore parts of the Republican base, where most of the primaries are closed anyway. So Trump's going to dominate moving forward. He's probably not going to lose a single state. She's going to run out of money. The donor support will shift pretty directly towards Donald Trump from here on out because the inevitability factor. People are going to try to start falling in line and sucking up to Donald Trump so that they can be in his good graces and not have him turn against them. This is the reality of the Republican primary. Those of you who don't like Donald Trump will have to decide, can you accommodate him? And maybe can he offer up a vice presidential pick who brings you on board? Or do you sit out or do you go for Joe Biden? Because the reality is it's going to be Donald Trump. The reality is Donald Trump and Joe Biden will run this race again. Donald Trump and Joe Biden will both have the media highlight their foibles, more so for Donald Trump. What Donald Trump says will be judged more harshly by the media than what Joe Biden says. Joe Biden screwed up the name of the country tonight. He called it America instead of America. Donald Trump said something silly earlier, and the media is playing that up more than Joe Biden. That's just the name of the game. That's what we expect. It's what they do. And we can be prepared for it. Now, here's the key for Donald Trump moving forward. And thus far, I would point out all of this has fallen in exactly as I've told you it was going to fall in. Here's the key for Donald Trump. We are January 23rd. He has just won the New Hampshire primary. He has from now until November to pull in as many people as he can. It is very clear Donald Trump has a solid base within the Republican Party. Donald Trump now has until November to expand that base as large as he can. There are supporters of Trump's who want just a purified Republican Party. You can't win with the purified Republican Party because that purification process weeds people out of the party. You've got to grow the party now. So Trump, from now, January 23rd, 2024, until November's election, has an ample runway to style his message to persuade as many people as he can that Joe Biden is the problem, not Trump, that Joe Biden's the one with dementia, not Trump, that Joe Biden has the bad economy, not Trump, that Trump has the answers for Biden's problems, and the border and inflation are the top two issues for voters right now. If Donald Trump can focus on the border and inflation, he will highlight those problems. My suggestion to Donald Trump, in light of the Supreme Court decision, you should go to the border and highlight what's happening at the border. Joe Biden today says it's not a crisis at the border. Go to the border, highlight that issue. You know, and I know damn well every media outlet in the country will follow Donald up to the border. He will be allowed to define this race before Joe Biden does. Joe Biden tried to define the race. Donald Trump can be the one to define the race. Go to the border now before you go to South Carolina. Highlight the border issue. It is the number one issue for general-only voters. People who don't vote in primaries, they only vote in general elections. They're not partisans. Their number one issue is the border. Number two is inflation. You have winning messages on those issues, Donald Trump. You need to expand the party, not contract it. That also matters when it comes to your vice presidential pick. Find someone who will not alienate People who are Republicans but don't care for you, there's ample data that 13 to 15% of Republicans say they're not going to vote for you. If that's the case, given how close 2020 was, it could be fatal this time, but you have an opportunity. You have a long time now. Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee. There is no way for Nikki Haley, as much as I like her, she's not going to win her home state of South Carolina. If she doesn't drop out before South Carolina, she will shortly after South Carolina. Trump will be the nominee, and he has this great long runway now, a great long runway that he can build a coalition to win in November. He's got to put his mind to it and focus that message. And I would say the message is partly, frankly, 2016, the border and illegal immigration. We're back to that. And he's doing it right now when Joe Biden says there is no crisis at the border. So for those of you just tuning in, your summation, Donald Trump, no surprises, wins in New Hampshire. Big crossover vote comes in for Nikki Haley. It still doesn't help her. It does show a level of antagonism for Donald Trump in parts of the country. You combine that with low turnout in Iowa, a lot of people will say it's enthusiasm. I say, frankly, part of Iowa was weather, and part of New Hampshire was the inevitability factor with the polling. Why bother showing up when it was a done deal? But yeah, I do think there's going to be an enthusiasm issue. And again, that's why Trump needs to take advantage of this long runway to make something happen. Now, for those of you who like the idea of the Republican Party picking Donald Trump again, I'm kind of in that camp with you. That's the reality. There's nothing you can do about it at this point. So your question is going to have to be, how do you pursue the future in this race? I will say, for those of you who like Donald Trump a lot, and I don't include myself in this, but I do think you're going to see this undercurrent of people who are so disaffected by the way both parties pick candidates, 280-year-olds who say goofy things, both of whom are supposed non-champions of democracy, all of that sort of stuff. I do think you may see a low turnout in November. And so the more both parties can maximize their turnout, the better. And Donald Trump's got some serious abilities to pull in people who are non-college educated, non-white Democratic voters who do not want to be in the party of the awfuls, the affluent white female urban liberals who have been dictating social policy for the Democrats and dictating, frankly, financial policy for the Democrats that has left the elite better off and everyone else miserable. He's got a message he can turn on, sell, and promote, and he's a great marketer. Biden has angst about Donald Trump. Biden can't actually sell himself. He's got to tear down Donald Trump. Trump can tear down Biden, but every single person who's going to vote in November was alive when Donald Trump was president, and we didn't have high inflation, nor did we have these mass uncontained border crossings. He's got a record to sell if he has the discipline to do it. That's my take on New Hampshire. From here on out, we're in general election mode.